Lakers just sold for $10 billion. You could buy 33 million yearly Netflix subscriptions for that price. In addition, look at the rise of the value of NBA teams because her father bought this team for $67 million, which was a ton of money back then and still a ton of money now. But now we're talking about she sold it for $10 billion. And these are the prices of the recent NBA teams sold as well. For some reason, that graphic I made rounded up the numbers, but let me tell you something. Because the Lakers, $10 billion, record breaking for any sports franchise ever. This is not just NBA. This is the largest sale of a team in professional sports history. But that deal was this year. The Celtics $6.1 billion was also this year. The Phoenix Suns was in 2023. The Dallas Mavericks were in 2023, and I think you're seeing a trend here. The top 4 sales were all in the last couple of years. The value of every franchise has gone up so much, it's barely even fathomable. Let's go back to this chart because you look at the bottom of the screen, the Indiana Pacers were bought for $11 million. NBA salaries are larger than $11 million. That was back in 1983. Did you know that a Big 3 team, if you don't know the Big 3 league where they play 3-on-3 basketball, it's usually like retired players or somebody who used to be in the NBA and stuff like that. Well, guess what? A few of those teams sold for $10 million themselves a couple of years ago or last year. LeBron James is making what, $50 million a year? He makes more than they bought the Indiana Pacers for. And I think this is absolutely so smart of Jeannie Buss. Supposedly she's going to stay in charge of basketball operations. We heard the same thing about Mark Cuban, so I hope she does because you could tell she loves this team. I bring up Mark Cuban because he's not actually in charge the way that we thought he was, or I guess he thought he was, but they said that Jeannie will still be in charge of basketball operations. I guarantee this was a tough decision for her because I don't know her personally, but again, she seems to love the Lakers, like love everything about them. And I'm sure she really didn't want to sell. And I don't like to talk about people's money or, count people's pockets. That's not what I like to do. But I just want to point out that in NBA terms, because of all these billionaires buying NBA franchises, the Lakers didn't necessarily have as much money in ownership as some of these other teams. And I'm not trying to count her pockets. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to point out that it felt like it was getting to a point where she had to sell to, the highest bidder. Because first of all, that's an insane price. You can't turn that down. Second of all, to keep up with all these new billionaire owners who, again, the second apron, gives you limitations on what you can and can't do with the roster. But essentially, it's like endless money supply for a lot of these teams now. And so in a way, this kind of does give the Lakers a bit more financial flexibility. But I commend her for doing this, honestly, because it must have been a hard decision. But going back to this graphic, it seems that NBA teams and sports teams in general, just seem to keep going up. The value has not leveled off yet. And I don't know when or if they will ever level off, get to a point where it plateaus. But at the moment, we could see NBA franchises being worth $15-20 billion in the next few years. And does that create a problem for the NBA? When I say problem, let me clarify. Obviously, teams always go to the highest bidder, and the NBA wants the value of each franchise to go up every year. They are thrilled that the Lakers sold for $10 billion and not $67 million. Again, not throwing any shade. That was, the price it was at the time, but the NBA obviously wants the value of each franchise to grow. So this is amazing for the Lakers. But does it get to a point where you are literally pricing out, and this is not the NBA's doing, but is it going to get to a point where you're pricing out people who maybe should buy a team? Because I'm not saying, for example, that LeBron should or shouldn't own a team. That's up to him. I'm just saying, obviously we know he loves the game of basketball and he obviously wants to be around it. Having someone with his knowledge of the game and obviously, his experience is something that would be unique in ownership. Just like when Michael Jordan owned the Charlotte Hornets, it was definitely unique because we hadn't seen that before. And I'm not saying whether LeBron would be a good or bad owner, that is not my point. But LeBron, even him who is, makes, I don't even know how much money, but a lot, is he going to get even priced out? Someone like him can buy pretty much anything. Again, not trying to, count his pockets, nothing like that. But is he going to even get priced out of buying an NBA team? It's getting so large that only a finite amount of people could buy a team. It was obviously always a select few, 1% or whatever. But are we getting to like 0.5% where, I don't know, like, is it just going to be Jeff Bezos with all the teams?